What's up, Fanatics? So, today seems like as good a day as any to start ranting. I'm Tim Clark, and you're listening to the Musings of a Sports Fanatic, a podcast found exclusively here at pennsports.live. Yeah, so um, first of all, I'm going to mix up the podcast a little bit. I like to change it up every so often so it doesn't get stale for listeners, but maybe just as importantly, it doesn't get old for me either. So, I mean, I'm still going to give you my take on sports, maybe throw some, maybe one non sports thing in just for fun and just mix it up a little bit, kind of get rid of the docket. First of all, if you've been following along, thank God someone finally told me. One of my weekly listeners said, "Hey, your music's not coming through." So hopefully doing it this way. It's not the song I want. I like the guitar riff by Sophie Lloyd, but that is I still got to figure out. I got to figure things out, and I'm not real technologically savvy, so you'll have to bear with me. So we're going to use the sort of the generic. I was called daydreaming, which on a blistering hot summer day here in central Pennsylvania, daydreaming seems like a good thing to do from inside where it's air conditioned. I'm still hot with the lights on in here, even with my air conditioning on. So anyway, gonna switch it up a little bit, not a ton, but so for starters, we're going to let's see if I can do this. I'm going to let you see Spicoli in person.
Hey, bud, what's your problem?
Yeah, so my problem, Spicoli, I've got a lot of them this week. Now, here's also I'm going to bump my other podcast a little bit here, Wall-to-Wall Football. My buddy Eric's been doing it with me. We got to get our friend Scott back into the mix here eventually. He stays pretty busy during the summer, so at least air quotes busy. So we're going to get him back in here at some point. But we're going to talk about this on Wall to Wall a little bit this week as well. But when I decided I was going to do rants, this one really hit me. As a USC fan, of course, you can see my USC gear. There you go. You can see the fight on. In the last 2 days, USC has lost 2 5-star defensive line recruits that had verbaled to them, both from Georgia. I've just got to look. I can go on. I want to save some of it for Wall to Wall. This whole process now, college football is suddenly going to become not as much fun as it used to be for me. I used to enjoy following the recruiting. You would occasionally, there was going to be a kid here or there, and it was always, we would term them a questionable kid that would change their commitment, sometimes 3 or 4 times. But they were like the outlier, I guess we would call it. Now, this is happening all the time. And it's because of NIL, which is not NIL. I wish we'd stopped saying NIL. It's not name, image, and likeness anymore. It is flat out which school is going to pay me the most. And first of all, let me make something perfectly clear here, as I will on Wall to Wall. I'm not blaming the kids for the process. Now, we can blame the kids for being greedy, if you want to call it that. But look, what 18-year-old kid isn't going to take a big pile of money if someone's going to lay it in front of them? I would have when I was 18 years old. I would now. I'm 57 years old. If someone would lay a pile of money in front of me, I'm taking it. So I don't blame the kids so much as I do the adults. The adults kept getting greedier and greedier and greedier and greedier, and now we don't have college athletics. This is semi-pro athletics. This is a minor league. And I guess that's, I don't know if that's what they wanted, but that's what they're getting. And so these two kids, look, I thought it was a stretch. Here's what I'm pissed off at about USC. Not that any of you probably want to hear USC stuff, but when Pete Carroll was there, they put a fence around California. You might have someone come in and get a kid here or there, but those California kids, modern day, if you went to modern day, a modern day kid just verbal to Penn State, for heaven's sakes. If you were a modern day kid, you were going to USC. That was a done deal. Like, it was just a done deal. So I'm pissed off at USC because they're not. Lincoln Riley is going to have to figure it out. And see, this is what happens. He came, and so did Pete Carroll. You come from the outside in. And to me, that's just something that someone's going to have to tell him is, yeah, I know you got to do national recruiting these days. You have to. Eric and I talked about it last week on Wall to Wall. But you've got to put a fence around your home. And he's letting all these California kids, a lot of LA kids, get out of there. And of course, USC fans are saying, well, they're taking the money. They're taking the money. And they might be taking the money. Are you telling me that USC can't up their money game with all those donors that they have? I don't know. But anyway, that's my USC complaint. But my complaint with college athletics, and I'll get to basketball in a minute, I wish they would, if this is the system, and it is going to be the system that we have, the players are going to get paid, then I wish that you may not announce a verbal commitment. Make that a rule. You can't announce a verbal commitment. You will commit on signing day. And when you sign on the dotted line, and then I'd like to see them make a 2-year contract. If this isn't going to be college athletics anymore, then let's do a 2-year contract that says you're not transferring. Some of these kids are transferring before they even play a game. They sign and they go to spring practice and they put their name in the portal because they didn't like what they saw at spring practice, or because someone like Phil Knight at Oregon or wherever is going to offer them more money. So I think if this must be the system that we're forced to deal with, and it is, then that's the rule that should be put in place. You will announce on signing day where you're going. You will sign on the dotted line, and you will sign a 2-year commitment to that university. Maybe there can be buyouts. That's what coaches do. You know, coaches sign a contract, and then there's buyouts. So if you want to do some kind of, some kind of buyout thing or whatever, but it's no fun following recruiting because these kids are changing. Even the Juju Lewis kid, that's the number one quarterback, has been USC, but yet he wants to take his other visits. And then in between each visit, he says, no, I'm fully committed to USC, put out a video last week. Well, you know what? Then don't take your other visits. This is ridiculous. And it happened to USC this week. It might happen to Nebraska next week, Florida the week after, Penn State the week after that. This isn't a USC thing. It just happens to affect me because I'm a USC fan, but it's happening all across the country, and it's taking the fun out of this stuff. I no longer care when a kid says, hey, I verbaled to USC, I verbaled to Penn State. Maybe the modern day kid that verbaled to Penn State, well, maybe he'll end up at USC. Who knows? It's all nonsense. And the biggest thing is this: it's the NIL. Quit calling it NIL. I'm going to stop saying NIL because it's not name, image, and likeness. Name, image, and likeness would have worked, because then the elite players would have got paid because the used car dealership wants to use you in a commercial, or because they're printing jerseys with your number and name on it, and you're going to get a cut of that. The center, the left guard, probably weren't going to get NIL deals, and that's okay because they're still going to get a free education, and that should still matter. Okay, I'm for the players getting paid. You know why? Because the adults decided, let's look at Beaver Stadium right across the mountain from me. what is it, $700 million to refurbish Beaver Stadium, when schools, the school president, the athletic departments, the NCAA, the adults in the room, when they decided we need to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the TV money's not enough, we want more TV money, and the TV people are just as guilty. And this thing just blew up to the point where, okay, Beaver Stadium's not good enough, so we got to put $700 million of money into it, which, for the record, they should have built a new stadium, but that's a whole other issue for another day. But it's ridiculous. And the reason they have that money is because of the players. If they don't have the great players on the field wearing their uniform, winning games for their school, putting up highlight reels for their school, then they wouldn't have the money. People wouldn't show up at the stadium. People wouldn't buy the jerseys. So the kids deserve to get some money out of this, 100%. But the reason we're in this situation is because enough was never enough. And I know I'm a broken record on this. I've said it a million times. But enough was never enough. And it kept exploding, and then boom, here we are in this ridiculous situation where kids commit, then they decommit. They're getting an extra $100,000 from this school, so they're going to take it. Alabama fans, I got news for you. I like Nick Saban. I think he is almost a character, and a great character. But the thought that Nick Saban was something that was super special, you've been paying recruits for a long, long time, way before NIL. And I know this because the two kids that were coming to USC and were going to come on an official visit this weekend to USC are now going to official visit to Alabama this week. And if I see those two kids sign with Alabama with a new coach not named Nick Saban, a guy that really nobody east of Washington knew until the championship game last year, I've got to suspect that Alabama's laying bag after bag after bag after bag after bag of money in front of these kids. So I don't want to hear Alabama fans, the almighty Alabama fans, oh, that's Nick Saban, boy, he could really recruit. He could. And it helped when he had bags of money sitting behind him. How about Steve Sarkisian the other day went on a rant on a podcast about, we don't recruit like that at Texas. And then they immediately released video of when they pull a recruit in, they walk them by a line of Lamborghinis that are sitting there, brand new, by the way. In other words, hey, this one could be yours. So Sarkisian's still shoveling his pile of you-know-what, just like he always has. I'm sick of the whole system. I'm ready for games to start, so maybe I can take my mind off of how ridiculous the adults have let this system get. So when you want to point a finger, and I know some of my buddies want to point a finger at the kids, and no, the kids don't know how to, what about the taxes? Well, no, nobody's thought about those things, the consequences. Do the kids understand that this money is going to be taxed and what happens with that? Excuse me. No, they didn't, because the adults were too busy counting their $100 bills to see if they can build an improved erector set at Penn State, a locker room at LSU with video game systems and heated foot warmers, and it's LSU. I'm not sure why that was necessary. That's what they're worried about. And they're worried about how many bags of money can they lay at the feet of these recruits. So that's their concern. Certainly not the unintended consequences of giving these kids piles and piles of money. But the system stinks. But make sure you blame the right people. You can blame the kids like some of my buddies are. Great kids and the inner city kids that never saw this much money. No, they haven't. But blame the adults. They're the ones that caused this system to happen because enough was never enough. And I mentioned college basketball. My God, I wrote in my column, Tim's 2 cents, which you should be reading here at the website as well. I don't even know, now I get Louisville and USC. I'm a Louisville basketball fan. I follow USC because of my football allegiance to them. They both have absolutely brand new roster. USC kept one kid. Louisville kept nobody. I get that there were new coaches, but you didn't keep anybody. Excuse me. And Cal goes to Arkansas, so Kentucky has a new roster. Arkansas has a new. ESPN was kind enough to list the top. I think they had to stop at 150, and then in small print they had all the other kids. I have no idea where anyone's playing this year. Richmond, it was a great player at Seton Hall. I just realized he went to St. John's with Rick Pitino. You will not, if you're a fan of your team, it will be hard for you to ever. And football is going to be the same way to a certain extent. To ever really like certain players because you don't know that they're going to be there the next year. And if you look at that list of basketball names, my God, I don't know where they're all. I mean, everyone's going somewhere different. And I can't imagine. Here is. I guess this isn't a shot at the kids, but I can't imagine being 18 and 19. Of course, I come from a small town, and I've stayed in that small town, and maybe that was my mistake. But can you imagine at 18 and 19? Hey, I'm going to be in Louisville, Kentucky, as an 18-year-old. As a 19-year-old, I'm going to go to LA and be in LA. That didn't work out. I'm going to go smaller scale. I'm going to go to Lubbock, Texas, and play at Texas Tech my junior year. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine jumping from city to city, town to town, from one year to the next. And I don't even want to think about what your education looks like and how many of those credits transfer over, or how many. I'm sure a lot of those kids don't really care, but and there in part is another problem. I think the kids should be getting paid, but the education should still matter. That's why you go to college, and if you don't want it to matter, then let's just call it what it is, a minor league system, and move on from there. All right, that's enough. Next up on the rant list, ESPN. I just barely can tolerate ESPN anymore. Thank God that Scott Van Pelt comes on at night and allows me to watch something with some sensibility to it. I thought he did a great job promoting his buddy Tim Legler. Tim Legler is really good at analyzing the NBA. He is, I think, more level-headed than most of these clowns that do it. But is it me, or has ESPN become the Stephen A. Smith show? And I no longer can stand Stephen A. Smith. I used to be able to tolerate him, but I have no time for Stephen A. Smith. It's all about him. My God, what was it? Game 4, their promo was Stephen A. Smith in his white suit and sunglasses walking into the arena. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I could care less what Stephen A. Smith has to say because he thinks he's always right, and usually he's always wrong. They got rid of Jeff Van Gundy, and I know Disney and everything, they're losing money. They had to make some layoffs. They get rid of Jeff Van Gundy, who was as good as it gets, as is his brother Stan. I'm not. Look, I know a lot of people like Doris Burke. I can't stand listening to her. And before you say, oh, I like some of the women announcers. I think Rachel Nichols is fantastic. They let her go because some phone call that got taped, and she made some innocuous comment about women on ESPN and whatever. I think she's really good at analyzing the NBA. And so is Doris Burke knows the game. I'm not suggesting she doesn't know the game. But there's something annoying about her. And so that's who they're promoting on the NBA Finals, which I don't know if anyone watched because the NBA, that the Celtics had that thing won 2 months ago. But ESPN's just become really hard to tolerate. They keep Desmond Howard on their college football game day program, and he's just awful. You got rid of David Pollack. That was a good thing. Now do the right thing and get rid of Desmond Howard. Pat McAfee hasn't signed a contract. And look, I like Pat McAfee one day, and I can't stand him the next. When he has his Crazyville best bud Aaron Rodgers on, I don't have time for that. the media should stop giving Aaron Rodgers a platform. I saw he had to resort to going on, who's the old Fox guy? Tucker Carlson, where he was spouting off how we're going to be China here within another year or two. He's batshit crazy, and Pat McAfee gives him a platform. But McAfee was good on game day because he added some fun to it. That's where McAfee's good. McAfee's good because he adds fun. Sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth. I don't like all of his guests. I don't like that he panders to them, but he's fun. And he hasn't signed with Game Day because he said he doesn't know that he fits in with the college football fans. Well, I think maybe he's trying to hold out for more money. As far as I'm concerned, they could get rid of Desmond Howard, put Pat McAfee over there, and you would have. I know my buddies don't. I still like that they wheel out Lee Corso. I'm good with that. To shove the headgear on the poor man, but I don't know. ESPN when I was growing up, of course, it was new when I was a kid, but that's where I turned to watch the highlights. Every night you watched ESPN for the highlights, and then they started covering. They got the NBA deal in college football, college basketball, and they switched out their college basketball people. I just don't know. Again, I understand they felt like they needed to make layoffs because God forbid they don't have enough money for their investors, which is what all these CEOs care about. They don't care about you and I. They care about their investors and their pockets. So they laid off a bunch of people, and some of the people they laid off were really good, and some of the people they kept were really not good. So I've got major issues with ESPN, and enough with the Stephen A. Smith love fest. All right, a little golf to rant about, and I'll talk a little bit about the golf here in a later segment, but I don't like NBC covering golf. They did get rid of Johnny Miller, who I thought was awful, and then they got rid of Paul Azinger, who was even more awful than Johnny Miller, and they let Brandel Chambly kind of be their sort of lead analyst, I guess. They were kind of jumping around. First of all, for the early rounds, 1 minute I had to be on Peacock, then I had to be on USA Network, then I had to be on my NBC station. I am so sick and tired of not only needing to have 45 streaming services to see all the sports that I want to see, but also that I have to jump from here to here to here within the same event to watch it, and it's confusing and it's frustrating. So anyway, but back to the Brandel Chambly. So I thought Brandel Chambly was, and we anyone that follows golf knows he absolutely hates LIV. He hates the fact, and I'm with him on this, that you took money from the dirty Saudis to help them sports wash their atrocities and to line your pockets with their dirty money. And when those guys did that, they knew what was happening. Well, NBC then decided we were going to have a slobber fest over Bryson DeChambeau, who, for the record, is one of the top 3 golfers in the world right now. And it's because this lunatic has put every second of his day. Now, I hear him say that he's stepped away and he has other interests and things. But he's put every second of his time. My God, he washes his golf balls, or he soaks his golf balls in Epsom salts to see if they're imbalanced, and so that he knows how to line them up with the imbalance. I don't think any other golfer goes to that level. He also did this crazy strength and conditioning to get his body where he can hit the ball a mile, and he had an advantage last weekend at the U.S. Open because while other guys are hitting 5 or 4 irons, he's hitting an 8 or a 7, which means he can hit it higher in the air, and he was getting it to land softer on the greens. So he deserved to win the U.S. Open, and he deserves all the kudos he's getting for his golf game. He is still a douchebag. And you guys that are falling for it like NBC was, and let's slobber over, look at how he's high-fiving the fans, and he signed the handicapped kid's hat. Well, Rory stopped to say hello to the handicapped kid, too. they put that kid at the edge of that green for that purpose. So it wasn't just Bryson DeChambeau that did that. Bryson DeChambeau is also not the first golfer to stay late to sign autographs. Many other guys have done it. Max Homa does it every week. To me, Bryson DeChambeau is still putting on an act. He gets all goofy and whiny out in the golf course. I thought he was going to cry because of his stance. He kept hitting it into the junky stuff at Pinehurst, and he kept getting good lies. But a couple of times, his stance, he couldn't put his feet where he wanted to, and he was about to have a hissy fit about it on that one hole. To me, Bryson DeChambeau is still the same guy that Brooks Koepka made fun of, and now they're buddies because they're on the Live Tour together. But NBC's going on a slobber fest about Bryson DeChambeau, and Mike Tirico says, "Oh, I can't believe he didn't make the Olympic team." And all Brandel Chambly did was tell the truth. He said, "Well, Mike, remember, they knew when they signed on the dotted line for Live some of the things they'd be giving up." Well, the Live bots, as they call them online, went crazy. "Oh, there he is, showing his hate for Live." And no, he wasn't. He was also slobbering all over Bryson DeChambeau the entire tournament. He just said a fact. And I know that side doesn't like facts. It's much like our political system. One side of the aisle doesn't care for facts. And it's the same way with Liv. And it wasn't it ironic that Bryson DeChambeau's drinking out of the U.S. Open trophy with none other than Donnie Trump Jr. If there's a bigger moron than his dad, it would be him. And that's who Bryson DeChambeau was hanging out. That should not surprise anybody. And so Brandel Chambly states a fact, and the other side goes bonkers. He then stated another fact, which was absolutely true. He said, look, the guy's gotten unbelievably lucky. He hit it on just on the final round alone. I think he was in that stuff, 9 or 10 times, I think, off the tee. He was not hitting it straight. And other than the 18th hole, where he did catch a bad break, he kept getting clean lies where he could get it out of there and onto the green. And Brandel Chambly stated that. And he stated that Rory choked, which he did. And the Live bots came out and attacked Brandel Chambly. Listen, I'm not even a big Brandel Chambly fan. But because I think he's one of those guys that gets on your nerves after a while. But look, I agree with him on the Live stuff, but even if I didn't, surely I'd be smart enough to know, well, that's true. I watched the tournament, and DeChambeau did. He got one good lie after another. That's a fact. It's a fact that when they signed with Liv, they knew they were going to lose points on the world golf rankings, and they were going to lose Olympic points. That's a fact. Those aren't opinions. Those aren't, I hate Liv, so I'm going to say this. Those are facts. But the slobber fest over Bryson DeChambeau, including all the NBC guys, he's a great golfer, and he has radically changed the way people play the game. And it'll be interesting to see if other players, especially younger players coming in today, sort of copy his routine and regiment. I hope they don't copy his putting style. He is still one of the slowest players out there. It's one of the reasons Brooks Koepka got sick of him, between his whining constantly and the fact that it takes him 6 hours to play a 5-hour round. It's annoying, and he still takes forever on the greens. So I hope they don't copy that, but the whole strength and conditioning and all that stuff, and how measured he is with everything. And look, it is successful for him. He has been in the hunt. He almost won the PGA if Xander Schauffele would have bobbled one time like Rory did this past weekend. You'd be looking at Bryson DeChambeau as your PGA champ and your U.S. Open champ. And he played well at the Masters. He's the one Live guy that is actually playing well in the majors. The other guys, poor John Rahm, I think he is regretting every second of every day since he has switched over to Live. He won't admit it, but I think he is. He was hurt, so he couldn't even play. Dustin Johnson looks like a shell of himself. I think Brooks Koepka is still Brooks Koepka. He didn't have a good week, and Pinehurst is the kind of course that would get under Brooks' skin. He wouldn't talk to the media this week because he gets sick of the same old question. So Brooks hasn't really changed. He's still prickly. He still does Brooks things. So I don't know that he's changed too much. But, Cam Smith, I thought he'd do better this week because of the greens, and he's a good putter, but he actually putted horribly on them. So, again, kudos to Bryson for being the one live guy that has been able to step up in the majors and be successful. But enough of the slobber fest and enough of criticizing a guy because he simply gave you some facts. Next up on the rant list, baseball scheduling. The Pirates just played a 3-game series with the Cincinnati Reds, one of their division rivals, and it was the first 3 games that they have played with them all year long, and that is ridiculous. I have seen enough, and look, I got into not an argument, a debate with a coworker, and he's a younger guy, and I think there is a difference between us older guys and the younger guys that follow baseball and gals. I want to see the Pirates play the Reds and the Brewers and the Cubs and the Cardinals early and late. And then in the middle of the season, I want to see them. First of all, I'd like to see their rivalry be the Phillies because that's what it is. They're in the same state, in case baseball hasn't noticed that. And play, go out west for some West Coast trips and then have them come. But I want to see the bulk of their schedule be against their division rivals because then winning the division means something. What does it mean if you win the division, if everyone's playing the Blue Jays and who else? They played the Twins and the A's. The Tigers are their rival. They play an extra couple games against the Tigers because that's their rival. It's idiotic, and no one should be surprised. Baseball, I won't even say the analogy. Let's keep it clean, but baseball screws things up easily. Let's just put it that way. So this should not come as a surprise that they've botched this scheduling. But how is it? I'm taping. I always forget to tell you guys. I'm taping June 20th at 12:15 p.m. I'm ready for lunch. But this is the first time you've played the Reds, who are also kind of a rival, certainly a division rival for sure. That's idiotic. It's insane. And I heard Bob Walk say it on the telecast either last night or the night before that he doesn't like it either. And if it's good enough for Bob Walk, it's good enough for me, to tell you the truth. But it's just, I don't know. It's ridiculous. And my buddy that I work with that's younger, he said, well, I like being able, if I want to get tickets, then I can go see Mike Trout if the Angels come in. Or Vlad Guerrero for Toronto, he used as an example. Okay, I get that. Watch them on TV. Or wait until they get in the World Series against your team, and then you can go see them. I don't know. I guess that's just me, and I don't go to a lot of games, so maybe that's another factor in my opinion. But I don't want to see the Blue Jays or the Twins or the A's. Of course, I also want the pitchers to hit. So I'm super old school when it comes to baseball. But I just think, if you wanted to do a little interleague play, when they started out, it seemed like it was okay. I guess this is okay. We'll play the American League East this year, and we'll play the American League Central next year. And you might not see, you might go on the road to play Cleveland, and then the Twins come here. And you might go on the road to play the White Sox, and then the Royals come here. Things like that. You might not see it, but it was a rotating basis. Now it's like, let's play everybody. Let's just play everybody. Well, then let's get rid of divisions baseball, because what does it really mean? First of all, you might, and the NFL, by the way, can follow suit. I'm not sure the divisions mean a whole lot. Just line them up. You can have American League, National League. They used to do it this way. And then you want a bajillion teams in the playoffs anyway, which in the National League is ridiculous this year because there's 3 good teams. But nonetheless, then you just go, okay, first seed, 8 seed, second seed, 7 seed. It'd be easy. But you might as well get rid of the divisions because you don't really care about the divisions. If you did, you wouldn't schedule the way you are. And my last rant will be a quick one, but locally I've heard some stories lately, and I thought, I've ranted about this before, and that's youth sports. Youths. Did you say Utes? Youth sports. God, I miss Fred Gwynn, by the way. Herman Munster. Um, in my local Babe Ruth league, by the way, nobody plays Babe Ruth anymore. I swear to God, the county I live in plays Babe Ruth, and about 6 other counties around the country. We're a little behind the times, to say the least. But nonetheless, our Babe Ruth league is 13 to now 16 because they couldn't get enough kids, which is a rant for another day, too. Kids not doing anything. They couldn't get enough kids, so they advanced the age to 16. So it's 13 to 16. And they've got high school kids umpiring most of their games. They have a couple adults that kind of run the umpiring, but it's high school kids. And I was told a story about a parent who's an assistant coach. So he's in the dugout, and he gets thrown out repeatedly. Now, why he's allowed back in the dugout, I don't know. I got thrown out of a game once 35 years ago, because our assistant coach was making a kid cry, and I went ballistic on him. I got thrown out of the game and suspended for 1 game because I was trying to protect a kid who was getting ridiculed by an adult. But now you apparently can get thrown out of game after game after game, and they let you right back in. So apparently one incident was he told the one high school kid who was umpiring the game, why don't we settle this in the parking lot? You're an adult, and you just challenged a 18-year-old high school kid to a brawl in the parking lot. If that's where you're at as an adult, you might want to seek counseling or take a Xanax before the game. But that's just a touch too much. And then in a recent game here a week or two ago, apparently same guy, and good for this kid, another different kid, but a high school kid, threw this guy out because he was going nuts over ball and strike calls, and threw the guy out, and the guy went bananas. Apparently one of the other assistant coaches told him he was an embarrassment, and eventually he went out to the parking lot where he gets into a verbal altercation with another parent who was telling him to knock it off. But my point in all this is there are high school kids umpiring these games because there are no adults that want to put up with the nonsense that the parents give them. And I haven't refereed YMCA basketball for quite a while now, but I had firsthand experience with it. They always run, it's called March Madness at our local Y, and they get teams from all over the state, which is pretty cool. And it's competitive. And I was refereeing, and one of our, I won't name names, but he was a prominent judge in our county. And if I'd have known that, I probably wouldn't have done this. But first of all, he was too important to sit with the common people in the stands. So he plops himself behind the basket on the court, leaning up against the wall. And we try to let him play because it's a running clock. There's a lot of things. So you don't want to call every ticky-tack foul. So his kid's team would come down, he thinks there's a foul. And every trip down, he's barking. And as I'm running up to the other end of the court, I couldn't take it anymore. I blew my whistle, turned around, I said, you can get out of the gym. And it wasn't until after the game that someone said, you just threw the judge out of the gym. I was like, oh boy. Luckily, well, he's not a judge anymore. He retired, but I never got into any trouble. But he was a big time. He went to Penn State and played a little ball up at Penn State, and he knew everything. But I don't care who you are. If you're an adult, go watch the game and keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, that's what you're going to get. Instead of having adults referee or umpire your games, you're going to have high school kids who are going to do the best they can, but they're high school kids. So it is ridiculous. People take youth sports, all this travel ball. Hey, my kid's going to North Carolina next week for a travel ball tournament. Oh, good. So you're going to ask people to donate money and all that kind of stuff so they can go to a travel ball tournament. Let me know how that works out for them. Let me know when they sign their major league contract because they played travel ball. Better yet, let me know when they're sitting a bench for their high school team, which I saw at my local high school. a bunch of these kids that I'm playing travel ball, and mommy and daddy paid scads of money and begged for money, and then they didn't even make the starting lineup on their high school team. Let me know how that works out for you, travel ball parent. All right. So one thing different that I'm going to do for now, I'm going to call it piggybacking on my column. I might come up with a catchier name than that, and maybe some pig noises. Who knows? But so my column this week, which I want you to read, so I'm not going to tell you the whole lot of it. Tim's 2 cents here at PennSports.live was about Rory McIlroy's choke. I'm not sure I've seen a choke like that in a long time. Now, the second putt on 18 was a twister, and Lord knows I've missed plenty of those. But I'm not a professional golfer. I'm not ranked second in the world. I know it was a difficult putt, but if you're ranked second in the world, I kind of like to see you make that. And I sure as hell would like to see you make that flat 3-footer on, what was it, 15 or 16 or whatever, 16. I certainly want to see you make that as the second-ranked player. And then he was hit, he gets a 2-shot lead. He immediately hooks a drive into the bad stuff. And then he, gets the yip on the putt. Then he hits it into a bunker on 17 and does manage to save par on that one. And then he yips the putt on 18. It's weird to see a guy. He's got 4 majors. It's weird to see a guy collapse in the big moment in majors like this. It's been 10 years. I like the guy. And I like him more now because when all this live stuff came down the pike, I think he tried to stand up for PGA Tour, and I think the commissioner, Jay Monahan, hung him out to dry. Now they're going to make a deal, it sounds like. By the way, Tiger's going to be get exempt for all the what do they call those, the upper echelon tournaments, like the Memorial, all that. I forget the name of it, but I think it's a good move. I know, cue the Tiger haters in 3, 2, 1. I know, here they come. But look, the guy has done an immense amount for the game of golf. Between Nicklaus and today, Tiger Woods really saved the game and made the game popular, and he made it more popular. Did you ever think you'd see black kids out on a golf course? I mean, being honest, did you ever think you'd see that? And now they're all over the place because of Tiger Woods. Girls on the golf course because Tiger Woods promoted golf for girls. And just in general, he's promoted the game of golf. Hey, there's my guy, Dan the cat, getting in the picture. But so I'm glad they're letting Tiger Woods into these tournaments. It's not going to hurt anything. He's probably going to finish last in most of them that he decides to play, but at least it gives him an option to play. And who knows, maybe it'll allow him to tune up his game a little bit. I thought he played okay at Pinehurst. Of all things, he couldn't putt, which you would think maybe would be something that he could work on a little more religiously when he's practicing. And his iron shots were not very good. But he drove the ball well. I mean, he really was there. He was in position to make the cut for sure, and just didn't putt well enough or hit enough good irons. But anyway, back to Rory. So I like the guy. I think he was a stand-up guy for the PGA. But this choking thing is a real thing. I likened it to, Clayton Kershaw was one of the examples I used. Clayton Kershaw is one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball for his career, but he's 13-13 in the playoffs, and it took a COVID-shortened baseball season for him to ever get a World Series ring. Joel Embiid and James Harden I used from the NBA. They are great players in the regular season. The playoffs roll around, forget about it. And they have not won anything yet. But that's the difference. Rory's won 4 of these. Like, Rory knows how to win these. And I think it's just a case of time keeps going past and past and past. And the more time that passes, the better the chance is that he's, going to continue to do this because it's more pressure weighing on him. I hope he gets over it. I hope he does it at the British Open this year. He usually plays well in the British Open. And, coming from Europe, he's familiar with those courses. I'd love to see him win the last major this year and just get that monkey off his back, and so people like me quit talking about it. But it was quite an astonishing choke job. And my final thought in my column was about the Pirates trying to win. Are they trying to win? That's been the social media debate. Look, I watched the Colorado Rockies, the worst team one of the worst teams in baseball, the worst team in the National League, steal home because Yasmani Grandal, who was one of our great veteran signings, lobs the ball, and he does it all the time. Lobs the ball. Sometimes the pitcher has to go like chasing after it to the pitcher, and the Rockies saw it, and they were like, "Hey, next time he lobs that back, I'm going." And they stole home without a play because he lobbed the ball. He doesn't get benched. He didn't get reprimanded, as far as I know. So are the Pirates trying to win? Well, that really makes me skeptical. I think they have a chance to win. And when I say win, by the way, the National League is so unbelievably mediocre. Now I got a chance to see the Reds, and they're not very good. I watched the Cardinals against the Pirates, and the Cardinals are not very good. The Pirates themselves are not very good. I saw the Cubs are not very good. I have not seen the Padres. I cannot figure out why they're not better. I saw the Nationals, and I see their record. I'm stunned because they are not very good. So some of those teams are going to make the playoffs. They're going to be a wild card team. So when I say the Pirates have a chance, they have a chance to be a wild card team this year. They really do. And you know what? You get into those 3-game series with Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller gave up 0 runs in 7 innings again last night. Um, I wouldn't bet against them, but are they trying to win? When I see their roster littered with these veterans who have done absolutely nothing. Now, Rowdy Tellez, to his credit, has gotten hot, but he's still only hitting like 220, and that's after a hot streak. Grandal is useless. Please let me see Henry Davis try and work out his issues. I'd rather see him strike out, but know that he's trying and he can run hard. And he doesn't, he certainly throws better than Grandal. I'd rather see him try and work out his issues than watch this veteran who's got no future. He's got nothing going on for him, behind the plate. So, anyway, are they trying? I don't really know that I would say they are trying based on that. We'll see what they do at the trade deadline. But could they win? Yeah, they could absolutely grab a wild card spot. And it's not even a stretch of the imagination because the rest of the league is so mediocre. And then my last thing, I guess we could put this in the time machine. I'm not going to play the time machine music, but Willie Mays passed away the other day at age 93. He had been not in such great shape. His vision had gone on him for the last handful of years. I wish I would have been old enough to remember or to have seen Willie Mays play, other than the highlights that are still, the black and white highlights. He retired in 1973 with the Mets, of all things, and wasn't really, he probably maybe hung on a year or two longer than he should have. And I was only 7 then, so I wasn't really totally following baseball yet by any stretch. So I wish I would have got to see him. I know my dad always said Willie Mays was, if not the best all-around player, one of the best all-around players that he had ever seen play. My dad played some minor league ball in the late 40s, early 50s for the St. Louis Cardinals. So he got to see, he went to spring training with Sam Usual. One of his great stories is that they got Ted Williams out in a spring training game. He took credit for that. He was a catcher, so he called the pitches that got Ted Williams out. But he got firsthand experience at seeing some of the great players through baseball, and so for my dad to say that Willie Mays was one of the best he's ever seen holds weight for me. And of course, all these other players. I saw Andrew McCutchen. They spoke to him about the year he was in San Francisco, or part of the year, and he said Willie Mays knew all of his stats. When they went on a road trip, he knew whether he had played well or not. And he said it was fascinating to sit and talk to him, knowing that he was maybe the greatest baseball player. And I heard Bob Walk and Steve Blass say it on the telecast last night. Maybe the best athletic power hitter And Steve Blass said if Babe Ruth wouldn't have pitched, he said, I may put Willie Mays number one. He said, I still put Ruth number one because he both pitched and hit, and he did them both very well. But he said if it weren't for that, he said Willie Mays would certainly be at the top of his list. But I like that description of him. He was the most athletic home run hitter. And he was, before they had the tool belt in baseball, he was certainly a five-tool player. And Barry Bonds, his godson, you could argue I saw this. I love Twitter debates. I think they're fun. It's one of the fun things about Twitter or X or whatever we call it. Is Barry Bonds now the greatest living baseball player? That's still alive. And I think you could certainly argue, I know steroids, I know. But I think you could argue that he is. So anyway, that's going to do it for me this week. Again, going to make some changes, and bear with me. Who knows about the music situation and my technology or lack thereof savvy. But bear with me, but make some changes just to mix it up because I don't like to do the same thing for too long. But it's still going to be sports talk. Oh, I almost forgot my non-sports thing that I noticed this week. I pull into my local grocery store parking lot, and one car is pulling out, playing really super loud country music. Where I come from, we call it shit kicker music. And then when I come out of the grocery store, a car's pulling in, boom, 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 with some kind of rap DJ, whatever. I like rap music, but I don't know all the new artists out there. And he's thumping the rap music. And I turn my engine on, and I've got Ozzy Osbourne blaring. And it dawned on me, I don't know if metropolitan areas are like that because I've always lived in this small town. But it's funny. You can pull into any parking lot in a small town and hear about 4 or 5 different kinds of music blaring, and no one even misses a beat. Oh, country. Okay, yeah. Oh, you're listening to rap. Perfect. And I think, isn't it? And sports are a little bit like that. I like baseball. I like basketball. I like football. Small towns tend to be like that. I assume metropolitan areas are pretty much the same. I just found that interesting. That so 3 different cars pull into the same parking lot, and we've got country blaring, rap blaring, and Ozzy Osbourne blaring out of my radio. So anyway, that's my off-topic topic for this week. All right, Fanatics. That's going to do it for me. You know the drill.